are the incubators, and here is the week's supply of ova, good blood heat. Now here, we immerse the eggs into a warm bouillon containing free-swimming spermatozoa. Immersion continues until the eggs are all fertilized. And over here is where we bottle the alphas and betas. In short, gentlemen, the perfect process for manufacturing healthy babies.
Now, of course, that's, again, an audio clip from Brave New World, the radio presentation for the 1950s when radio presentations were still done. And it's a chilling, chilling story of a future time when the government makes the babies in the factory rather than permitting viviparous reproduction, that is, in a woman's womb. Because they didn't want the random mess of the disorderly mess, that is, of the birth of a baby. Now, we're on the road to that not only with embryonic stem cell research, but what do you think all of these tests are doing to the human gene pool? What are they called, Janet? What are these things called that people have before a birth, where they do a scan? What are these called? Amniocentesis, where they look at the baby and they ultrasound. Oh, there's your son, there's your daughter. And then they say, you know, I didn't want a daughter, kill it. I mean, I've heard these stories. Do you understand what this is doing to the human gene pool? Do you understand what happens to the baby, by the way, when ultrasound is projected into the womb? Have you seen the child? Have you seen the so-called non-human? The non-human embryo? Have you seen the baby's hands clench and the baby curl up into a more fetal position than it already is in as a fetus? Have you not seen that? Well, I guess Obama hasn't seen it. I guess all of the monsters in the Democrat abortion mill haven't seen that. The non-life being inside the womb curls up when those sonar waves hit them. Now, the liberals, of course, talk about the dangers of sonar pings from U.S. submarines when they affect dolphins and whales and other cetaceans, don't they? But they have no such qualms about sonar waves blasting an embryo while it's in the womb. That shows you who these liberals really are, these phony, rotten, anti-life, neo-Marxist vermin. That's who's doing this to you. And if you think you voted for this change, you're mistaken. I want to tell you again, Obama didn't win by a large margin. Many people who would have voted for a conservative jumped ship just to say, go to heck, you know who I mean, Bush and McCain. We're sick of your rotten policies. It was anyone but Bush. They didn't vote for radical Marxist left-wing maniac policies like this. But don't tell that to the professor, the young junior college professor who thinks he is king. You know, novels have been written about Obama in the past. Many novels have been written about him, only he doesn't know it. I know how this ends, and it doesn't end well for him. Eventually his own party will turn on him when they realize he's an out-of-control, narcissistic egomaniac dragging the country down a road that even the Democrats don't want to go down. I can guarantee you that. But again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Like Panasonic used to say, we're slightly ahead of our time. Well, I'm slightly ahead of my time here, and I don't want to get ahead of myself again. Instead, I want to go to the callers here on the Savage Nation. We have a late-breaking story that just came out. It's actually very good news. Obama's anti-Semitic pick to be the head of the National Intelligence Council, a man who, they say in every conversation, in every meeting, said something negative about Jews, Charles W. Freeman Jr., Obama's picked to be National Intelligence Council chairman, a man who was the former ambassador to Saudi Arabia, a man who, it turns out, had conflicts of interest, including he headed an institute funded by Saudi royalty. He sat on the board of a Chinese state oil company and took the side of Chinese against the Tibetans. All of you libs from Hollywood. I don't want to hear what he said about the Tibetans. He called it a race riot when they rioted, when they stood up to the Chinese killers. He called it a race riot. Well, today he was skewered by none other than the mild-mannered Joe Lieberman. Joe Lieberman gave this guy a good grilling today, and the man who wanted to point to Mr. Blair. And Lieberman torpedoed him because this guy was a nightmare. One last point, all you good liberals. Ambassador Charles W. Freeman Jr., the appointee of Obama to be the head of the National Intelligence Council, called for a national federal identification card for every American to make certain that we all knew where everybody was at any one time. Isn't it interesting how liberals who claim they want freedom and privacy, the minute they're given power, want to take away your freedom and your privacy? Isn't it interesting how liberals cry about the U.S. Navy and their sonar on submarines and how it affects whales and other cetaceans are not concerned about the effect of killing embryos or projecting sonar, in essence, sonic booms into embryonic embryos. Isn't it very interesting, the hypocrisy of liberals? You're not going to believe what you're going to hear when we come back. Annette Bening, that flopped actress, comes back glowing from Iran, just like Durante did in the 30s when he went to the Soviet Union.
AM 560.
Ron Reagan here.